Every morning, millions of Americans visit coffee shops for a caffeine fix. But for a specific breed of customer, a simple latte is a stage for high-stakes drama. We are talking about people who treat baristas like servants and view a slightly crooked foam heart as a personal attack. From physics-defying demands to customers who think a $3 coffee entitles them to an 8-hour office rental, the audacity is breathtaking. Here are 55 of the most absurd and entitled coffee shop complaints ever recorded. 1. A mother in Atlanta once left her 2 toddlers in the play area of a local cafe and walked across the street to get her nails done. When she returned an hour later, she was furious that the baristas had not changed her son's diaper or shared their personal snacks with the kids. She screamed that a community coffee shop is supposed to support parents, and that the staff was being unneighborly by not acting as temporary nannies. Imagine the level of audacity required to treat a barista like a free babysitting service while you go get a professional manicure. 2. There is a special place in the afterlife for the person who walks into a slammed cafe and orders a secret menu drink with 50 ingredients. One customer in Chicago lost his mind because the barista did not know how to make a sparkly unicorn sunset cloud macchiato he saw on TikTok. He screamed that they were ruining his daughter's birthday by being uneducated on social media trends. If you saw someone holding up a massive line for a drink that does not actually exist on the menu, would you call them out or just judge them silently from the back? 3. A man in a high-end Manhattan espresso bar complained that the sound of the milk steamer was interrupting his very important business call. He was sitting 2 feet away from the machine and asked the staff to stop making lattes for 20 minutes so he could finish his Zoom meeting in peace. When they refused, he wrote a 1-star review claiming the staff was intentionally sabotaging his career and that the shop lacked a professional atmosphere. The ego required to think a public business should halt operations for your sales pitch is legendary. 4. A guy in Portland once brought a full-sized power strip into a crowded cafe and proceeded to plug in his laptop, phone, tablet, and a literal desk lamp. When the barista told him he could not block the aisle with his tangled cords, he complained that he was effectively paying for the electricity through his $5 latte purchase. He argued that since he was a regular, he basically owned a small percentage of the building's utility bill. Do you think coffee shops should start charging an hourly fee for people who treat a public cafe like a private office? Or is free Wi-Fi now a basic human right? 5. Then we have the lady who tried to use her birthday as a get-out-of-jail-free card for an entire month. She walked into the same shop every single day in July, demanding a free large latte because it was her birthday month. When the staff pointed out that policy only allows for 1 free drink on the actual day of her birth, she accused them of ageism and claimed they were discriminating against a loyal customer. It is a classic case of main character syndrome where the rules of reality simply do not apply. 6. One guy in Austin sent his latte back 3 times because the foam art did not look enough like his pet golden retriever. He showed the barista a photo on his phone and expected a museum-quality portrait rendered in oat milk. After the 3rd attempt, he complained the ears were too floppy and the nose looked more like a Labrador, then spent 20 minutes lecturing the staff on artistic integrity. At what point does the phrase "the customer is always right" just become an excuse for someone to be a total nightmare? 7. There is a legendary story about a woman who complained that her hot coffee was served too hot. She expected the shop to have a cooling station where they would blow fans on the cup until it reached exactly 140 degrees before handing it over. She told the manager it was irresponsible to serve beverages at a temperature that caused steam to rise from the cup. It is almost as if she forgot she was in a place that literally boils water for a living. 8. A regular at a suburban Starbucks once complained that the barista smiled too much, calling it aggressive and performative. She wrote a formal letter to corporate claiming the morning staff's happiness was an insult to people who were not morning people and created a hostile environment. She requested that the staff maintain a neutral, robotic expression when serving her so she would not feel pressured to be polite back. Some people are so committed to being miserable that they view joy as a personal threat. 9. We cannot forget the man who brought his own bag of beans from a rival shop and demanded the barista grind and brew them for him for free. His logic was that he was already paying for the cup and the hot water, so the labor should be included. When the manager explained they are a business and not a public kitchen, the man accused them of having a monopoly and threatened to report them to the Better Business Bureau. The confidence it takes to ask a business to help you not spend money is almost impressive. 10. We have the customer who claimed she was a caffeine psychic. She ordered a decaf latte, but returned it 5 minutes later, claiming she could feel her heart racing and that the shop had secretly given her full caffeine as a prank. The barista showed her the decaf hopper, which was full, and the regular hopper, which was nearly empty, proving she got what she ordered. She still insisted her third eye was telling her otherwise and demanded a refund plus a gift card for her imagined emotional distress. 11. In a busy Detroit shop, a customer reached behind the counter and unplugged the main credit card terminal so he could charge his electric scooter. When the entire system went down and the line stopped moving, he told the frustrated manager that his personal transportation was more important than a few $5 transactions. He claimed that since the shop did not provide enough public outlets, he was forced to improvise for the sake of the environment. The audacity to shut down a whole business for your own convenience is truly impressive. 12. A woman in Denver walked into a strictly vegan coffee shop carrying a giant bucket of fried chicken and started a literal feast at the center table. When the staff informed her that they do not allow outside food, especially meat, she had a total meltdown. She claimed she had a medical condition that required her to eat animal protein every 30 minutes and that the shop was violating her civil rights by being exclusionary. She even tried to offer the barista a drumstick as a bribe to let her stay. If you saw someone holding up a line to argue about their right to eat a bucket of chicken in a vegan shop, would you laugh or walk out? 13. In a trendy Brooklyn cafe, a customer once complained that the background jazz music was too intellectual and was making it impossible for him to focus on his adult coloring book. He demanded that the staff switch to a specific lo-fi hip-hop playlist he had curated on his own phone. When they refused, he stood up and started singing loudly to drown out the speakers, claiming he was providing a public community service by improving the vibes. Some people really believe they are the main character in a movie that everyone else is being forced to watch. 14. A group of teenagers in an Ohio shop refused to leave at closing time because they were in the middle of a very intense board game. When the barista started stacking chairs and dimming the lights, the kids complained that they were being kicked out into the cold and that the shop should stay open until the game was finished as a matter of sportsmanship. One of them actually called their mom to complain that the mean barista was ruining their Friday night. What is the proper punishment for people who refuse to leave a shop after closing time? 15. We all know the person who loses their mind over the 50-cent charge for oat milk. One guy in San Francisco argued for 10 minutes that since he was allergic to cow's milk, charging him extra for an alternative was a form of medical discrimination. He demanded to see the store's tax records to prove that oat milk actually cost more than dairy. He eventually took his drink but left a note on a napkin saying he would be contacting his lawyer about the dairy industrial complex. It is wild how people will spend $5 on a drink but go to war over 2 quarters. 16. There is a legendary story about a woman who arrived at a shop at 6 in the morning just to claim the best couch, even though she did not buy anything for 3 hours. When a group of 4 people finally bought a full round of drinks and needed the space, she refused to move, claiming she had squatter's rights over those specific velvet cushions. She even put up a small sign she brought from home that said, "Reserved for royalty." Would you have the guts to sit down right next to her and start a loud conversation? Or would you just find a different shop to avoid the drama? 17. A self-proclaimed travel influencer in Los Angeles tried to pay for a $40 order of lattes and avocado toast, with a shout-out on her Instagram story. When the cashier told her they only accept actual money, she accused the shop of being stuck in the Stone Age and failing to understand the value of modern digital marketing. She told the line of customers behind her that this shop was officially canceled and that they were all supporting a business that hated creators. It is truly fascinating how some people think 5,000 fake followers equals a valid form of currency. 18. A man in Chicago started using a local independent coffee shop as his personal mailing address because he did not want packages sitting on his own porch. One day, a literal mini-fridge was delivered to the shopfront, and he expected the baristas to sign for it and move it into the back storage room for him. When they told him he was insane, he complained that he spent $10 a week there and that his loyalty should come with concierge services. The sheer nerve of turning a small business into your personal warehouse is on a whole different level of entitlement. 19. One customer ordered a complex caramel macchiato, drank 80% of it, and then walked back to the counter claiming she actually wanted a matcha latte instead. She demanded a full remake for free because she had a sudden change of heart halfway through the cup. When the barista pointed out that she had clearly enjoyed most of it, she claimed she was just testing the quality and that it had failed her personal standards at the very bottom. Some people really think a coffee shop is a laboratory for their personal whims and constant indecisiveness. 20. There was a man who complained that the brown recycled napkins were too rough for his skin and demanded that the shop stock quilted 2-ply tissues instead. He argued that if he was paying $4 for a muffin, he deserved a luxury wiping experience. He went so far as to bring a sandpaper block to the counter to show the manager that the napkins were basically the same texture. 21. A guy in San Diego once walked into a quiet boutique cafe and started clipping his toenails right on the mahogany communal table. When the barista, naturally horrified, asked him to stop, the guy argued that he was a paying customer and that hygiene is a personal journey. He claimed that the shop did not have a sign specifically banning nail maintenance, so he was technically within his rights. He even asked for a small bowl of hot water to soak his feet. Seriously, should businesses have to list every single obvious act of human decency in their rules? 22. In a Nashville shop, a woman lost her mind because the chalkboard menu was written in cursive. She screamed that it was elitist and discriminatory against people who never learned to read fancy loops in school. She demanded that the barista rewrite the entire 10-foot board in block letters immediately while she waited. When the staff offered to just read the menu to her, she accused them of condescending to her and wrote a review saying the shop was run by snobs who hate the common man. 23. One customer in Philly tried to demand a 20% discount because the barista had bright purple hair. She claimed the vibrant color was giving her a migraine and that the shop should compensate her for the physical pain caused by their aggressive aesthetic choices. She sat there for an hour, staring at the poor girl and holding her head like she was in a pharmaceutical commercial. Would you ever have the nerve to ask for a discount just because you did not like someone's hair color? 24. A man in Vermont once brought his own 4-slice toaster from home and plugged it into a wall outlet behind another customer's chair. He started making a loaf of sourdough right there, claiming the shop's bagels were too corporate for his refined palate. When the manager told him he could not run high-voltage kitchen appliances in the seating area, he complained about the lack of hospitality. He actually suggested the shop should provide a guest kitchen for people who prefer their own artisanal breads over the house selection. 25. We have the lady who complained that the baristas were judging her with their eyes while she sat there for 6 hours. She did not buy a single thing but felt entitled to a private booth in a packed shop during the morning rush. She called the corporate office to report that the staff was making intimidating eye contact by occasionally looking in her direction while cleaning tables. Some people are so desperate to be the victim that they interpret a simple glance as a declaration of total war. 26. A woman in Las Vegas once demanded a full refund for a latte she dropped in the parking lot 10 minutes after leaving the store. Her logic was that the cup was too slippery and that the shop should have provided a specialized grip-enhancing sleeve for free. She even brought the empty, crushed cup back inside as evidence of the design flaw and threatened to sue for the loss of her caffeine. Do you think a shop is responsible for your drink once you step out the front door? 27. A local real estate agent in Phoenix tried to claim a celebrity discount because her face was on a few bus stop benches in the area. She told the barista that her influence and stature in the community should earn her a free double espresso every single morning as a professional courtesy. When the teenager at the register told her he had no idea who she was, she accused him of being disrespectful to a local pillar of society. The level of local fame delusion in some people is truly a sight to behold. 28. One guy in Boston decided he did not like the layout of a small independent cafe and started physically dragging the heavy leather armchairs across the floor to create a feng shui circle for his friends. When the staff asked him to stop because he was blocking the emergency exit, he yelled that he was improving their business model for free. He argued that, as a frequent spender, he had a say in the interior design, and that the current setup was stifling his creative energy. 29. A customer in Seattle once complained that the coffee shop smelled too much like roasted coffee, and that it was overwhelming her delicate floral perfume. She asked the manager if they could spray some lavender air freshener, or perhaps stop roasting beans while she was enjoying her herbal tea. She claimed the smell of actual coffee was aggressive and masculine, and made the environment feel less inclusive for tea drinkers. Why would anyone go to a place that revolves around beans if they hate the smell of them? 30. We have the woman who demanded the shop turn off the central air conditioning in the middle of a July heat wave in Texas. She was wearing a thin sundress and felt a slight breeze, so she expected 40 other customers to sweat in 90-degree heat just so she could be comfortable. When the manager refused, she accused him of temperature bullying and sat there shivering dramatically while wrapped in about 50 paper napkins. Some people really do believe the entire world is a thermostat they alone should control. 31. A guy in Chicago once threw a literal tantrum because the digital checkout screen asked if he wanted to leave a tip. He screamed that the iPad was shaming him, and that the software was specifically programmed to make him feel like a bad person in front of his date. He demanded that the manager delete the tipping option from the entire store's system immediately just for his transaction. When they explained it was a standard feature, he tried to flip the screen over and called it financial harassment. Does the suggested tip screen actually make you feel guilty? Or do you just hit no and move on with your life? 32. In a quiet Vermont cafe, a woman brought in her own gallon of raw milk and demanded that the barista use it to make her latte while giving her a $2 discount for providing the materials. When the barista explained that using unverified outside dairy was a massive health code violation that could get the shop shut down, she accused them of being part of a corporate milk conspiracy. She actually stood there and tried to show the staff photos of the specific cow her milk came from, as if that changed the laws of the state. 33. A customer in Atlanta once brought a roll of yellow caution tape into a busy shop and blocked off an entire 4-person booth just for himself. He claimed he was a sensitive creator who needed a 10-foot vibe buffer to finish his screenplay without being touched by the common public's energy. When the manager told him to pack up the tape, he argued that he was technically renting the space by buying a small black coffee. Some people really think a $4 purchase comes with a legal deed to the local real estate. 34. There was a man in Denver who complained that the barista's tattoos were distracting him from the purity of the espresso. He wrote a long email to the owner, saying that art should be on the walls and not on the people serving him, and that the ink was contaminating the visual flavor profile of his morning. He even suggested that the staff should wear long sleeves in the middle of a 90-degree summer to accommodate his refined visual palette. It is truly amazing how people can find a way to be offended by literally anything. 35. A woman in Miami once walked into a high-end cafe and demanded that the barista stop using the blender because the noise was stressing out her emotional support iguana. The lizard was sitting on her shoulder, looking perfectly fine, but she insisted that the sound of a frozen frappuccino was causing it significant psychological trauma. She expected the shop to stop making all blended drinks for the duration of her stay. Have you ever seen someone bring a truly bizarre animal into a public place and act like everyone else is the problem? 36. A regular in a Boston shop once reached over the counter and grabbed the barista's personal phone off the charging dock because his own phone was at 1%. When the staff member told him to give it back, the guy argued that community resources should be shared and that his emergency Instagram post was more important than the barista's private property. He actually had the nerve to ask for the passcode so he could check his notifications while it charged. The level of "what is yours is mine" energy is absolutely terrifying. 37. A woman in Dallas once staged a full-blown intervention for her friend in a crowded coffee shop, and then complained to the staff that they were clanking the dishes too loudly during the emotional climax of the conversation. She expected the entire back-of-house crew to move in slow motion and stop washing spoons so her friend could cry in total silence. She even asked the person at the next table to stop chewing their croissant so loudly. Is it ever okay to have a deeply personal, high-drama conversation in a public cafe? 38. One customer in San Francisco demanded a free drink because the shop's Wi-Fi was not fast enough for him to efficiently trade crypto. He claimed that a 5-second lag on his laptop cost him thousands of dollars in potential profit, and that the coffee shop was legally liable for his financial losses. He stayed for 3 hours, used 3 outlets, and did not buy a single thing after his initial small tea, yet still had the audacity to ask for a compensation voucher for his bad morning on the market. 39. A guy in Austin complained that the happy music the shop was playing did not match his melancholy aesthetic for the day. He walked up to the counter and requested that they play funeral dirges or at least some heavy doom metal to better suit his mood while he wrote in his journal. When the barista politely declined, he wrote a review saying the shop was toxically positive and hostile toward people with complex emotions. Some people really just want the entire world to mirror their current internal weather. 40. We have the man who stood outside a shop 20 minutes before they opened and pounded on the glass door until the barista came over. Instead of asking when they opened, he screamed through the glass that the lights were too bright and were giving the neighborhood a bad look in the early morning. He was not even there for coffee. He just lived nearby and felt entitled to control the interior lighting of a business he never visited. Imagine waking up that early just to find something brand new to be angry about. 41. A guy in Philadelphia once walked into a single-stall bathroom with a full-size gym bag and spent 45 minutes taking a complete sponge bath and shaving his face. When the line outside reached 10 people and the barista finally knocked, he emerged looking refreshed and complained that his privacy was being violated. He actually argued that for the price of a macchiato, he should be allowed to use the facilities until he felt fully clean. He even had the nerve to ask the staff for a fresh towel because he forgot his own. 42. A woman in New Orleans spent her entire morning circling typos on the printed menu with a red pen she brought from home. She handed the defaced menu to the manager and demanded her breakfast for free because the spelling of cappuccino was supposedly offensive to her Italian heritage. She argued that poor grammar in a business establishment was a sign of intellectual laziness that devalued her customer experience. Imagine being so bored with your life that you become a self-appointed, unpaid editor for a local bagel shop. 43. In a busy DC shop, a man draped his designer coat over the only available leather chair at 8 in the morning and then left the building for 2 hours to go to the gym. When he returned and found a college student had moved his coat to sit down, he threatened to call the police to report a theft in progress. He argued that the chair was his legal property for the day because he had left a personal item as a marker. Is it okay to move someone's stuff if they have been gone for over 20 minutes? 44. A customer in Portland got so impatient with a 3-minute wait that he tried to jump over the counter to pull his own espresso shot. He claimed he was a certified home barista and that the staff was moving too slowly for his high-energy lifestyle. When the team blocked him, he started screaming about the suppression of local talent and how he could run the shop better than the owner. Some people have so much unearned confidence that they think a service counter is just a suggestion rather than a boundary. 45. One woman in Seattle finished her vanilla latte and then brought the empty cup back, demanding a free refill of just the steamed milk and syrup. When the barista explained that refills are only for plain black coffee, she claimed that milk was technically a liquid and therefore subject to the same rules. She sat at the counter and refused to move until they topped her off for free, arguing that charging for a second pour was a greedy corporate tactic designed to keep the working class down. 46. A woman in a bustling San Francisco cafe stood on a chair and clapped her hands to get everyone's attention, then asked the entire room to please whisper because she was reading a very complex mystery novel. She told the group of chatting students that their laughter was ruining the atmosphere and that a coffee shop is traditionally a place of quiet contemplation. When the room ignored her and kept talking, she started crying and told the barista she felt bullied by the ambient noise. 47. A man in Minneapolis once demanded to see the original packaging for the cinnamon used on his latte because he suspected it was not authentic Ceylon cinnamon. He told the staff that he could taste the difference in quality and that if it was regular cassia, he deserved a refund for false advertising. He even pulled out a small magnifying glass to inspect the dust on his foam. Should baristas be allowed to ban customers who treat the shop like a laboratory, or is that just part of the job? 48. Imagine being so entitled that you complain about the literal shape of your ice cubes. A customer in Florida did exactly that, claiming the square ice in her cold brew was melting too slowly and preventing her from drinking at her preferred pace. She demanded the barista take the drink back and crush the ice manually with a hammer. When the staff told her they did not have a hammer or the time for manual labor on frozen water, she threw the drink in the trash and walked out yelling about the death of customer service. 49. A woman in Seattle once demanded a full refund because her iced coffee was too cold. She stood at the counter and told a 19-year-old barista that the excessive chill was hurting her sensitive teeth and that the shop failed to warn her that adding ice would lower the temperature so drastically. When the manager explained how thermodynamics works, she threatened to call the police for physical assault on her enamel. Honestly, how do these people survive in the open world without a team of full-time handlers? 50. There was a man who complained about a single tiny coffee ring on a table, while he himself was literally shedding crumbs from a giant croissant all over the floor. He demanded the manager come over and sanitize the entire surface before he would even put his bag down. He lectured the staff on the importance of hygiene for 5 minutes, all while wiping his greasy hands on the communal velvet sofa. It is always the messiest people who have the loudest opinions about how clean everyone else should be. 51. A woman in Atlanta visited a shop once 3 months ago and was outraged the barista did not remember her highly specific order. She stood at the register in total silence, waiting for the teenager behind the counter to guess who she was. When the barista politely asked what she wanted, she accused the staff of being lazy and claimed she should be greeted like royalty. She even demanded a free pastry for the emotional trauma of being forgotten by a stranger. Have you ever seen someone act like a global celebrity in a coffee shop they clearly do not own? 52. In a quirky Austin cafe, a man brought a folding lawn chair from his car and set it up in the middle of the line because he hated the height of the shop's stools. He sat there comfortably, blocking 3 tables, and expected everyone to walk around him while he sipped his espresso. When the manager called it a fire hazard, he argued that his lumbar support was more important than the local safety regulations. He even asked the barista to move a nearby table so he could put his feet up and relax properly. 53. A woman in Phoenix treated the free sample tray like an all-you-can-eat buffet. She took 12 tiny cups of the seasonal latte, lined them up on her table, and then complained they were lukewarm. When the staff explained that samples are meant for tasting and not for a full meal, she demanded a large hot drink as compensation. She actually argued that since she had consumed the equivalent of a full beverage through samples, she was entitled to a loyalty stamp on her digital card. Some people view a small gesture of kindness as a loophole to exploit. 54. A guy in New Jersey tried to reach over the counter and adjust the pressure settings on a $20,000 espresso machine because the shot was pulling too fast. He claimed to be a self-taught coffee engineer and told the staff they were murdering the beans with their bad technique. When the manager threatened to call the police, he yelled that he was trying to save their failing business and that they should pay him for the consultation. Do you think there should be a literal cage around service counters to keep these DIY experts away? 55. Finally, the peak of entitlement came from a woman who complained that other customers were not attractive enough for her photo shoot. This minor influencer wanted the staff to move a group of construction workers in neon vests so they would not be in her selfie background. She argued her content was bringing the shop free publicity and she should not have to deal with the visual clutter of everyday people while she worked. It is amazing how some people believe the entire world is just a backdrop for their personal brand. Those were 55 stories of pure entitlement that probably made you want to brew your own coffee at home forever. It is mind-blowing how a simple caffeine craving can turn a functioning adult into a total nightmare for everyone else in the room. If you were a manager and someone demanded a refund because their ice was too square, would you ban them for life or just double their prices on the spot? Share your most insane coffee shop stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this look at the truly delusional, hit that like button and subscribe for more.